Hello and welcome to Higher Ground. It's here at TC Media TV in Olympia, and have a wonderful guest today, Fath. Welcome, and got some exciting stuff that we're going to be talking about. You're going to be talking about as an artist.
Thank you for having me, Buck. I got to meet you 2 weeks ago at the the theater, the Olympia. What is it called?
The Washington Center
for
Performing Arts. Yeah.
And you were kind enough to help hang the show. So it's up there now through the 12th. And yeah, thanks for your help. And it was good meeting you that day.
Same here.
I conned myself onto this show, and I want to thank you for that. And I don't know, I thought we'd talk about some of the art. So are we going to look at the pieces that are here now? Or
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So this is kind of an interesting story. These I moved with my wife and son to Olympia 2 years ago. Actually, 2 years ago. And we had a garage that was a mess, but I wanted to do art, so I had a table, and I just got up every morning, and my habit is to get up at 4 and work on my art. So I do that in the morning, and I was just doing these drawings until I could actually start the tear down of the garage and build a studio. And then now the studio is finally built and finished, and just paint now full time, big canvases. But as I told you from learning from the show, is that it's a pain in the neck to have large canvases. They're hard to move around and to hang, so I'm gonna address that in some of the new pieces I'm working on. But yeah, Olympia has been a great place for us, and for me personally, my art has really flourished here. It's been nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for, right?
I can. Olympia is a great city. The arts movement down here is really great. You know, there's a couple of really nice galleries that I like going to. Katma Gallery down on Washington Street, right down from the theater, is a pretty innovative gallery, and China and Arrington always are putting on eclectic shows, so that's a nice place. And then, you know, just the other artists in town here that I've met, like Susan Christian, Lucy Gentry, Lynette Carter Charters. I mean, just some great people. Renee, I can't remember her last name. I just blanked on that. And John Corzine. So there are a lot of good. There's a good art community here, and everybody supports each other. So I'm happy about that.
Well, the Performance Center is, you know, it's pretty hot stuff. How'd you get into the building to hang your work?
Jill Barnes, who is the executive director there, was over at Thomas Architecture where my work was hanging. And she asked Joyce, who is the person responsible for getting art shows there, whose show was this. And Joyce was kind enough to explain my show, and Jill called me and asked if I wanted to show at the Washington Center. So that was great, and it gets great exposure. I mean, they said some of the employees took a couple pictures of the Indigo Girls in front of my paintings, and they sent that to me. So that's kind of nice. So and then, you know, every time there's a show, there's a huge crowd that goes by, so it will get great exposure, and that's what it's all about, exposing your art to the public, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that's present. So how'd you get here?
Well, you know, it's an interesting story. I haven't painted all my life. I had a career, and that career was in advertising, and I loved it. I worked for a great agency out of Chicago called Leo Burnett, and I worked on the Philip Morris account, specifically Marlboro. And at the time I was on it, we were still doing television and print. And I got to go on phenomenal locations out west. The category, yeah, it's not a great one, but for me personally, it was a fantastic experience. And the Cowboys, great men, and there's nothing like the West. We worked with some incredible photographers and directors, and we had film setups on top of mesas, and they'd string the perimeter with Christmas lights because we'd camp up there at night, and they didn't want you falling off, which was nice. Uh, and that eventually led to them sending me over to Hong Kong to handle the business over there. And that was great. I mean, just being in Asia was a fantastic experience. So I got back from Hong Kong, and I worked for another agency after Burnett called DDB, and worked on introducing financial services for them, which was a category like watching paint dry. It was not the most active piece of business, especially coming from Marlboro. So I did that for a while, and then that was it. I had enough of advertising, and I ended up on Whidbey Island. I got divorced from my first wife, and I wanted to be as far away from Dodge as possible. So I went to Whidbey Island sight unseen and lived there, and that's where I really started doing my art again, because it was a whole reclamation process, and that started with using reclaimed barnwood because I was working as a gardener, and part of the job was tearing down old barns, and I'd keep the wood, and started working with that, and one thing led to another, and after 5 years there, I met my wife Maria, and we lived in Seattle together, and now we're in Olympia, and it's a great situation. And my son's at Evergreen, and I got to tell you, it's been the best situation for him, and my hat's off to them at Evergreen because they really are giving him a great education.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I feel very, we talked about this earlier, I'm full of gratitude. And gratitude is a big word in my program because I'm in recovery, and I've been in recovery for a long time, and it was hard to get all out of the bottom, and I never want to go back there. So every day I'm very grateful for what I have, and they're basic tools I have from the program that just keep me on a path I like, and painting is great because I don't have to think.
There you go.
I just paint. So it's been a great situation down here, especially mixing. This is the nature with the residential. It's a beautiful area. Just 10 minutes, I feel like I'm away. So.
Definitely, because you said you grew up in Manhattan, so
Grew up in Manhattan, and then
they don't have parks there, but
no, yeah. But Manhattan was great as a kid because that's where my love for art started. We were exposed to some great museums as kids. We had programs there on the weekends at, Museum of Natural History, MoMA, Hayden's Planetarium, and I saw great art. I saw Pollock and de Kooning and Kandinsky and Picasso. It was just like you were exposed to the best, and that really had a lasting effect on me. These paintings were just like, I just remember being awed as a child by them.
definitely.
The size and the power, the Rothkos, they were all just brilliant. Frank Stella, I love all these post-war guys. And then, when I got out of school, I ended up back in Manhattan for a while, and that was in the late 70s and early 80s. And at that time in Manhattan, it was the Mary Boone Gallery and Leo Costelli who were the big dealers, and they were representing the Julian Schnabels and Basquiat and Keith Haring and Salis, a lot of great artists. And so I've always followed those people, especially Sali and Schnabel. I really like their work. So as someone I look, as these guys, I look to them for inspiration. But then again, I also look to the Picassos and de Chirico for inspiration as well. So I've been, it's very nice to have the situation where I'm retired and can paint full time. And I hope to get my art further exposed outside of Olympia.
Mhm.
You know, there's other markets I like to be in. I think Olympia is coming into its own, but it's still a bit provincial. And I hope that doesn't upset the balance, but hey,
Yeah.
it is. So anyway, I have a great life here.
So just before we started today's show, you mentioned these pieces that are in front of us, and kind of like the number that you did in a 2-year span.
Yeah, I did about 400 of these. I mean, it was just like my routine is I'm usually up at 4 and I'm in the studio by 4:30, and these I would knock out like 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and maybe sometimes three a day.
Uh-huh.
But I wanted to get as many done because I knew that for the next 7 months, which it was 7 or 8 months, I didn't have any place to work.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a good exercise for me, and it really helped in terms of when my studio was finished, the new series I worked on, which was some of the bigger pieces on the top floor
Uh-huh.
at the theater, the Washington Center. So yeah, it's there's there's nothing nicer than having coffee, walking out your kitchen door, taking 2 steps, and walking in your studio. And
Very convenient, that's for sure.
yeah, it's nice. So, and you know, my wife and son always coming in, very supportive. They always they've got a good eye, and my wife has unbelievable ways of expressing what my art is that are like they're steeped in history in her mind.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I'm not that deep, so you know, I leave my wife up to telling the stories behind these, and some of them are really good. Some of them I'm like, man, I wasn't thinking that, but
Mm-hmm.
sounds great.
Yeah, but she picked up on it.
Yeah. So she's a big supporter. So that's been really helpful, and you know, we've had the chance to do some traveling, and the influences from places like Morocco, especially Marrakesh. It was just amazing. And we go to Greece to visit with her mom there, and I mean, it's just the history there. We're like such knuckleheads over here. I mean,
I hear you. I was kind of curious if, let's say, when you were with Philip Morris, and especially the Marlboro part and the locations, yeah, and the personnel involved, influencing you as well as being in Hong Kong, because some of the pieces that you have at the center reflect certainly the Oriental piece, and then, like you said, the reclaimed wood. That was so cool to see.
yeah, and then like some of the pieces actually have like almost feel like storyboard frames, and I was part of my career, and I'll tell you, I was lucky enough to work with a Hollywood director named Tony Scott, and his brother's Ridley Scott, and Tony did some phenomenal movies and also did a lot of our advertising. And that guy's storyboards were pieces of art. I mean, the guy drew like nobody's business, and he had an incredible eye. So, I mean, it just having those experiences out west in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes it'd be 30 below.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it'd be 110, you know, but it was always beautiful.
You're up on a mesa. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty trippy.
The top of a mountain, Telluride, I mean, in the middle of winter. So it was a great piece of business. And Philip Morris, I mean, when they liked an idea, they supported it wholeheartedly. It was a great client.
So was there a time in your work of where those influences kind of showed up, where you consciously or unconsciously, it was happening?
I I think with like the still photography we did and even the film, it's always how do you compose a shot and what are the elements that make the best shot. So I mean, working in that genre and in that, it was a small window, but boy, if you composed a nice shot, there was nothing nicer. I mean, that myth of Marlboro Country, that was something to live up to in terms of producing that type of work.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
it was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've just mentioned a couple of places, Hong Kong. So just a lot of.
Asia was different. They were not a big, the cowboy and the horses did not have a lot of relevance. So a lot of the work was geared to F1 racing, because at that time Philip Morris was sponsoring an F1 team,
I see.
which was led by Michael Schumacher.
Uh-huh.
So he was our
Big name. Yeah.
spokesperson for our number one person we use for advertising over there. And the F1 racing was huge, so the transition wasn't that hard.
I see.
And we did some great programs over there with Ferrari, where they'd go to a race and then a tour of the Ferrari factory.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have
So they
been
were
quite
nice,
a treat.
great promotions. Yeah.
Definitely.
So it was a great account to work on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And how about, I mean, Morocco and Marrakesh, that influenced the culture and all kinds of stuff.
The textiles.
Really happening.
It was crazy. One of the most interesting thing was going to the leather tanneries, which are ancient, and
Yeah.
these guys are knee deep, just stepping on dyes, and they use pigeon crap for to soften the leather,
Yeah.
and the stink is just unreal. But they produce some great stuff, and the tile work. Oh my God.
Must be incredible. Yeah.
It was beautiful. And while we were there, we got to visit. There was a perfumer named Serge Luton, and we saw his house over there, which is this ongoing riad, which was unreal. I never saw nicer pieces of art in my life. And then we had the other pleasure of touring, what's his name? Oh, Yves Saint Laurent home, which was equally beautiful. So, I mean, it was a lot of influences, color-wise, yeah.
I can imagine. And, kind of to come back to the pieces that you have right here, could you explain, because again, color, and that's what really noticed the work that you hung at the.
I think
your
for
work.
me, my subject matter might not be always the most optimistic, but I think my colors are. So I always use that as a basis to kind of play against some of the messaging. Maybe take some of the heat off the severity of what I'm saying.
I see.
And not all these pieces are severe, but some of them are a little rough, and I think that's good.
So when you say the subject matter, that's what you're talking about. But there's a message that you're conveying.
Yes, like a lot of the wet markets in Morocco. We'd be walking through, 15 camel heads would be hanging, and then the rest of the body parts.
Wow.
Bookshelves full of steer heads. It was just like very intense visuals. And people dressed in exotic robes and whatnot, so the colors, it was just constantly, it was like Polaroids every second. It was great. It was great.
And you've definitely have captured that, like you said, with the color.
And part of these stories are chaotic, because the life over there, it's not sitting in front of a television and watching Jerry Springer. I mean, you are working,
right in the middle of it.
and you are hawking your goods, and it's all day. And these marketplaces were huge. They were just unreal. And there'd be snake charmers, there'd be guys with monkeys. It was a blast.
Not something you're going to find just anywhere.
No, so I was very blessed to be there, and then they got smacked with the earthquakes. So it's been
Yeah, that's yeah. Unfortunately, and
yeah.
the way the buildings are constructed, unfortunately, it's
They're
not the
not
most
meant to
solid.
last, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sad situation for sure. But the vitality and to kind of come back from it all, that's what's amazing too, isn't it?
yeah, I mean it's the iPhone's an amazing thing because you get to capture everything you see now, and
Hmm.
those pictures are great references for me, and I use that a lot. And I think with those experiences and some of the angst I deal with, the combination of those make my art, I think, very interesting.
I see. Yeah.
So, and maybe it's not angst, maybe it's, I don't know, it's, uh, it's the human condition,
Yes.
always dealing with
Yeah.
it.
And that's, I think, is really cool too, because obviously you are the deep person, even though you're not describing it that way. But at the same time, is sensitive to these things, and it sounds like it's coming out in your art too, which is fabulous.
Hey, I mean, this life is a gift, and it's a quick gift, and uh, I think the older I get, the more I cherish it as a gift, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I like that part about growing up because as a kid, I don't think many of us realize that, and now that I see it, it's like, carpe diem,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and it feels like get the gray hair and all that stuff, but I'm still growing up.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah.
There's so much to learn and to do, to be.
And that's another great thing about painting. Every painting I finish, I see where I've come from the last one, see what I've done wrong in the current one,
Hmm.
and, think about, okay, do it differently the next one. And I like that.
How would you describe where you are right now with your work?
I think I'm developing a very strong language of my own in my painting.
Uh-huh.
And I think once I have another series done, I think my visual language will be very strong.
I see.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what kind of hinting at too is what your next series is going to be about if you
Well,
are up for sharing.
I'm started on a series about childhood memories, and I'm working on a piece right now, or I just finished a piece called "The Family Behind the Fruit Bowl."
Hmm.
So I'm juxtaposing a black and white image of a fruit bowl with fruit, so it looks
Hmm.
really nice.
Yeah.
And then behind it is the chaos of family.
Wow.
So it's very, people have said that's your Guernica. So it's a nice piece, so I like it. So I started another piece with that same type of uh, juxtaposition, but the events in Israel keep popping in my head. I mean, and it's like, I don't know. I keep going back to a graphic of the Star of Israel, and which is very strong, and how those triangles are splintered. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I
That's
don't
pretty
know.
powerful right there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Too. Yeah.
I'm working in my vein on a subject on that, but 9 times out of 10 that usually changes. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay because that's part of the process. My paintings have a lot of overlays.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of drawing underneath them, and uh, I like doing that all on the canvas. I'm not one to do a million sketches prior to
Mm-hmm.
doing the final work on canvas. I like
Working
spitting it
next.
all out
Yeah.
on the canvas. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
That must be just an incredible process in itself.
yeah,
And
it's
what a great way, like you said, is instead of the precursor or the preview, it's more like, let's get into it. That
yeah.
sounds like what you're describing.
I just wanted to tell you another quick story. When I was younger, my parents always had art and art to look at, and it was great. And I was thinking, who in our family had any talent? And I remember my older brother, and I don't even know if you remember this character, he would draw that Ratfink character that was on those cars. So that was my, so of course, what he did, I had to do. So there was thousands of Ratfinks around our house.
So
And,
they never called you up about the copyright stuff?
right. So I never thanked him for giving me my first art lesson. Yeah, so.
I mean, that was quite a character too.
Oh, it was, and the cars he had. I mean,
yeah.
we'd try to draw those, and I mean, we'd spend hours on that crap, and it was a lot of laughs.
What a place to jump off.
Yeah. No, it was a great childhood, and I'll tell you, I'm blessed.
Well, and you're sharing it. That's what's so wonderful for the viewer, for sure.
I think in these times, we just have to be humble and realize that we are so lucky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that. It's just amazing, isn't it, that we're able to sit here. We don't have to worry about incoming,
Right.
any of that kind of stuff. So that's just incredible.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to do this. I mean,
Hey,
like I said, we just hooked up and I just asked you.
It's been my pleasure. You're a good man, Buck. I've enjoyed meeting you. I think this is great for Olympia, and I hope you keep doing this.
Yes.
Because you've got a good voice for the people here, and I think it's really needed. And I think there's a ton of opportunity to bring a lot of interesting people, more so than myself, on this show. So,
Well, maybe we can collaborate with some of that, because the folks that you
Yeah,
might know, that'd be wonderful, because this
Yeah.
is about sharing.
yeah,
Public access television, that this is in a precarious position in itself, just that
Right,
industry.
right.
So it's how can we bring more revenue in here to support what we're able to do? I mean, this is great. It's state-of-the-art equipment. The staff is amazing. It's just you couldn't ask for better.
Right.
This isn't like the high network or Hollywood stuff, and that's okay.
No, but is this the time for me to start selling my 16 DVD set
Yeah.
where I sing with the likes of Pavarotti and Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett? It's a wonderful series.
Good to hear. Good to
Thank
hear.
you. Yeah.
Anything you want to close with?
No, I just Olympia rocks, and I keep getting stronger and keep doing art and keep it a free world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So thank you.
Oh, same here. Really
Cool.
appreciate it.
All right, Buck.
And look forward to. I hope we can. sit
I hope
here
we do
again.
this again. I'd love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, really to also showcase the work that you talked about. Well, it's on display right now.
Thank
at
you.
The Washington Center.
Yeah.
Just some incredible pieces in there. What, 4 floors? So
Yeah, I have 25 pieces there, and it's a great venue to show my work in that space. So I'm very grateful for, again, Jill Barnes and Vanessa, who helps Jill, and Jackie, who is the gallery coordinator, who you've met, and she's done a great job, and they're all good people, and they have great shows. So buy tickets for shows at the Washington Center.
Definitely.
My performance is, I'll come back with dates later. But
They'll be storming the doors.
They'll be
That's
storming
for
the
sure.
doors,
That's
right.
what we want. Sure. Well, again, thank you for tuning in today, and we will catch you in the next show.
thanks, Buck.
Yeah,
You're a
thank
good
you,
man.
Jay. Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
You too.